we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Let the doors be open to our move call. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The Honourable Member for Nunavut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Minister brushed off my call for an inquiry into Nutrition North Canada. She seems not to understand the serious effect the failure of this program has on northern communities. In Nunavut, over 50% of the households are affected by food insecurity. In case she doesn't understand that, it means they don't have reliable access to affordable, nutritious food. In 8 years since its launch, successive governments have spent over $500 million on Nutrition North, and all they've achieved in Nunavut is a 20% hike in the number of households affected by food insecurity. I wasn't joking yesterday when I said we should call it the Phoenix Food Program. The government can't continue to hide its head in the sand. Nunavut need help, and they want answers. Why has this program failed so spectacularly? An inquiry will tell us that, and it will help us find new ways forward to ensure food security for our communities. I call on the Government of Canada to immediately open an inquiry into Nutrition North. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, growing up in an Italian-Canadian family taught me the value of hard work and sacrifice, how to face adversity, and the importance of being a good neighbor. Siamo arrivati nel mese del patrimonio italiano e sono veramente orgoglioso della nostra comunità. The contributions we have made to Canada's diverse and rich social fabric. Sulla direzione de...
Under the current government, ties between Canada and Italy have become further strengthened on the basis of our common values: democracy, social justice, gender equality, and national pride.
I see these values in my own riding. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the hardworking Italian Canadians of Vaughan Woodbridge, the entrepreneurs, business owners both large and small, and all are incredible seniors. Sono fiero del mio patrimonio italiano. Je suis fier de...
I am a proud Canadian.
Part of a governing party that tabled M64, ratified CETA, and is reopening Canada's Milan Trade Office. I invite all my colleagues to join me in saying auguri. Happy Italian Heritage Month. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Banff Airdrie.
Mr. Speaker, this summer is a perfect time for people the world over to check out the most beautiful riding in Canada. Banff Airdrie is home to natural beauty that is beyond compare and amazing communities that organize outstanding events. Throughout June, the world-renowned Banff Centre is hosting events celebrating Indigenous peoples, including a drawing workshop, choreography creation lab, and singer Jay Gilday on National Indigenous Peoples Day, June 21st. Cochrane has the always popular RCMP musical Ride this July, and all proceeds go to Cochrane Victim Services, Cochrane Search and Rescue, the Lindsay Kimmett Foundation, and the Cochrane Roping Club. And who could forget the Airdrie Pro Rodeo coming up on Canada Day weekend? One of the largest rodeos in the country. It attracts over 10,000 visitors, volunteers, and contestants from across North America. An August-long weekend, the Canmore Folk Festival is taking place. You can see live music from some of the best out there at the Stan Rogers, Grizzly Paw, and Rocky Mountain Ski Lodge stages all weekend long. Mr. Speaker, we look forward to welcoming the world this summer.
L'Honorable Député de Brossard.
The Honourable Member for Brossard-Saint-Lambert. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Choral Society of Saint-Lambert celebrates its 100th anniversary in 2019. A true cultural heritage landmark, the SCSL is the oldest amateur choir still in operation in Quebec and one of the oldest in Canada. The Choral Society was founded officially in 1919.
Linked to the development of the municipality of St. Lambert, which was created in 1857 with the construction of the railway. At the time, concerts accompanied all major ceremonies. In September 1978, David Christiani devient le directeur de la
became the director of the SCSL and remained so until 2014. It establishes the eclectic repertoire that we have known since then: Baroque, classical, folklore, and Christmas music, among others.
Exceptionally talented musical ensemble, the Société Chorale de Saint-Lambert has contributed in many and varied ways to the social fabric of the city of St. Lambert. À l'occasion de cet anniversaire.
On this very important anniversary, I would like to offer the Choral Society my warmest congratulations. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, more and more elderly people are isolated, harassed by ill-intentioned people or subjected to pressure from their loved ones. Whether intentional or not, these acts of psychological violence lead to manipulation, abuse, intimidation, theft, or even physical assault. It would be inhumane to turn a blind eye to these realities. The men and women who have contributed all their lives to building our society deserve respect and consideration. Fortunately, groups are reacting. As part of World Elder Abuse Day, the AMI Intersectoral Table of Seniors is launching its annual campaign to distribute more than 20,000 placemats in the neighborhood to help people in vulnerable situations. Saturday, there will be an event in Parc Lafont with a series of awareness kiosks. I'll be there. The event is the initiative of the Table de Concertation Vivre et Veiller in Rosemont in collaboration with the Service des Loisirs Angus Bourbonniere, and I thank them.
Député de Nickelbelt.
The Honourable Member for Nickelbelt.
I'm proud that my hometown, Vernon, Ontario, is hosting the International Plough Match and Rural Exposition September 17th to 21st. This close-knit community and municipality of West Nipissing boasts plenty of outdoor activities and wonderful northern hospitality. The amazing staff, the amazing volunteers is why this town was perfect to be the host of this international agricultural event, which attracts tens of thousands of people across Ontario and Canada. And it's the second time in 100 years it's in Northern Ontario. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of the municipality of West Nipissing that is hosting this event, which will generate economic benefits for the community. Come and celebrate joy of living and meet the pioneering families such as the Baudry, Etier, Côté, Roberge, Rainville, Les Sages, Miron, Paquet, Demers, Ducharme, Gingras, Brunet, and Guénette. Lebeau, Leclerc, Saint-Jean, Casabon. Come and join us for one of the biggest events in Ontario in 2019.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
I'm honored to fight for the people of my riding, Calgary Nose Hill, because they work hard and they contribute much to the prosperity of Canada. For many, that means working in a job in the energy sector. However, they've suffered as this Prime Minister vetoed the Northern Gateway pipeline, purposefully mismanaged the still unbuilt TMX pipeline, chased away any hope of investment in the energy sector with Bill C-69, landlocked Canadian energy with Bill C-48, told the world that he wished he could phase out the energy sector faster, celebrated when his efforts killed the Energy East pipeline, and refused to reopen the equalization formula after killing our jobs. This is not nation-building policy. This is anti-Alberta policy. A message to the Prime Minister and the anti-energy left on behalf of the people in my riding. We've had enough. Continue on this path, and it's you who do so at the detriment of our Confederation.
The Honourable Member for King Vaughan.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that to grow a business, you must first invest in the business. Invest in your people, invest in equipment, and invest for the future. Companies do not cut their way to prosperity, Mr. Speaker. They grow it. Our government knows this. With long-term and sustainable plans, we are funding green infrastructure, tackling climate change, investing in public transit, protecting the environment, and helping families with the Canada Child Benefit and the middle income tax cut to put more money in the pockets of Canadians. We are making life more affordable and investing to set the stage for a vibrant, successful, and green future. While Premier Ford makes provincial cuts and wages war on Labour and middle-class Ontarians, we need a federal government with the right vision and plan to continue to build a more prosperous tomorrow. Now, more than ever, we need to invest in Canadians, support business, protect our environment. Our plan is working, Mr. Speaker, and the future of Canada is bright.
The Honourable Member for Avalon.
Mr. Speaker, our 42nd Parliament is soon coming to a close as we approach the federal election this fall. I want to take this time to thank the people of Avalon for allowing me the great honour of being their Member of Parliament. I hope once again to earn their vote and the privilege to continue to represent them in October and well into the future. Speaker, none of us would be able to do our jobs as MPs without the support of our family and our wonderful staff, and I'm pleased to have some of those people here today. My wife Trudy, who I'm sure deserves a medal for putting up with me. Her love, support and patience has been unwavering. Marg, Raquel and Shannon, who work in my constituency office, thank you for making me look good each and every day. And Vanessa, who works in my Ottawa office, all I will say about her is any one of us would be so lucky to have a person like Vanessa.
You're right.
Thank you, each and every one of you. I wouldn't be here without you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Commissioner of the Environment, the Auditor General, the United Nations, and the Pembina Institute all say that the Liberals will not meet their Paris targets. Even their own government figures confirm this. The Liberals' environmental plan is in ruins. On the one hand, they want to ban plastic, and on the other hand, they're investing millions of dollars in the industry. They say that polluters must pay, and then they approve the discharge of thousands of tons of untreated wastewater into the St. Lawrence River. Their carbon tax isn't a plan to reduce emissions. According to the PBO, large polluters will pay only 8% of the total revenue generated by the carbon tax, leaving the remaining 92% to be paid by families and small businesses for higher costs for gas, groceries, and heating. In the coming days, our leader will unveil our plan for the environment. Unlike the Liberal plan, which is not an environmental plan but a plan to raise taxes for Canadians, we will take concrete action to protect the environment while protecting Canadian taxpayers.
The Honourable Member for Mississauga Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in 3.5 years, our government's policies have had a positive impact on Mississauga. Here are some examples. The Canada Child Benefit has supported 140,000 children who received a total of $1 billion in benefits. Our housing plan has funded the building and repairing of 3,000 homes and subsidized 5,000 rental units. Thanks to our government's doubling the funding for the Canada Summer Job, 5,000 young Mississaugans were able to find jobs. And when we doubled the transfer for the gas tax, Mississauga's portion grew by $80 million. Now that's on top of the $100 million for infrastructure funding that went to transit, water facilities, and roads. And Mr. Speaker, it could have been more if it's not for the Ford government stalling more funding. The results speak for themselves, Mr. Speaker. Our government and the 6 strong Liberal MPs are fighting for the people of Mississauga.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Centre.
Today, as we begin Pride season, to share the incredible results our government has delivered for LGBTQ2 Canadians. We've invested an historic $20 million over 2 years in Canadian LGBT organizations. We've increased funding to Pride events across the country. We've extended legal protections to trans and non-binary Canadians, and we've expanded our ability to welcome more LGBTQ refugees to safety here in Canada. Nous avons fait de grands.
We have made great strides over the past 50 years, but a great deal of work remains to be done.
Speaker, the opposition leader's refusal to participate in a single event this Pride season demonstrates his disdain for LGBTQ2 Canadians. The costs of inclusion, the costs of inaction from the opposition leader and his party are real when we see some of the highest rates of suicide and homelessness among LGBTQ2 kids. Our party will lead. This leader, this plan, and our government are much better than advertised.
The Honourable Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, as devastating job losses in the forestry industry continue to mount in our province, the Liberals' tone-deaf response shows just how out of touch they truly are. They could have ended this dispute with renegotiated NAFTA, but failed, saying it wasn't a priority. When asked what they were going to do for our forestry families in British Columbia impacted by their poor decisions, they shamefully say, "Don't worry, it'll be okay." Yesterday, the Member of Parliament from Cloverdale, Langley City, proudly proclaimed, "There's no problem. Things are great. Unemployment is down." Mr. Speaker, they say they stand with the workers. Are they standing with them in the unemployment line? Are they standing with them when they struggle to get by? Are they standing with them when the bank is foreclosing? Mr. Speaker, Canadians and the hardworking forestry families deserve better. This October, they can cut the member from Papineau down to size because, Mr. Speaker, he's just not as advertised.
The Honourable Member for Pontiac. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the people of Pontiac for having placed their trust in me in 2015 or for having worked with me over the past 4 years for our communities, be it the amphitheatre in Maniwaki, Véloroute des Draveurs, the Cantley Community Centre, the Meilleure Résidence in Chapleau, the widening of Pink Road, or public transit in Gatineau. Our investments have had a positive impact on people in our region.
We achieved an historic settlement with the Algonquin community of Kitigan-Zibi. We've taken huge steps to protect the environment, $1.3 billion in conservation funding, and tough new measures to prevent plastic pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. I've channeled the voices of our municipalities who, like all of rural Canada, demand better internet and better cell phone coverage. And we've been hit by tornadoes and floods over the past 3 years, so we know that bridging the digital divide is still about the economy and public safety. Merci de m'avoir confié cet honneur.
Thank you for this honor and privilege of serving you.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, 2019 marks the 100th anniversary of the Winnipeg General Strike, 6 weeks that forever changed the landscape for the labour movement in Canada. Women played an integral role in the movement, which managed to continue public service delivery throughout its 6-week duration. It was women who began the strike at 7 a.m. on May 15th. Telephone operators, the Hello Girls, walked off the job, they unplugged the phone lines, and even removed the fuses, effectively disrupting communications for the power elite. And while Helen Armstrong, better known as Ma, receives little mention compared to the male members of the strike committee, she was a pivotal leader providing food and shelter to women affected by the strike. Helen was arrested and jailed more often than her male counterparts. The strike changed the lives of workers by enabling them to believe a better world is possible. Today, Mr. Speaker, it is as it was. Women are leading the way to creating that better world. Just watch us.
Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Island, and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal Prime Minister is taking our country down a dangerous path. Yesterday, in response to the united plea of 6 premiers urging him to accept amendments to Bill C-69 and C-48, he angrily accused Conservatives of threatening national unity, as though the very real anger and anxiety over these 2 destructive bills are some kind of Conservative plot against him. This from a Prime Minister that has made comments backing Quebec separatism if Conservatives stayed in power. These premiers are making their case. They're not making a threat. They're pleading for intervention. The Prime Minister is too petulant and too...
Is it working? No. So, order. I'm just having problems with the audio, the translation. Translation's not working. Is it functioning now? Is it correct? It's good. I'm going to ask the Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Island, and Rideau Lakes to finish up, and then we'll go to the next one.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is taking our country down a dangerous path. Yesterday, in response to the united plea of 6 premiers urging him to accept amendments to Bill C-69 and C-48, he angrily accused Conservatives of threatening national unity, as though the very real anger and anxiety over these 2 destructive bills are some kind of Conservative plot against him. This from a Prime Minister that has made comments backing Quebec separatism if Conservatives stayed in power. These premiers are not making a threat. They're stating the facts and they are pleading their case. And the Prime Minister is too partisan or too petulant to care. If he is so concerned about national unity, he should look in the mirror. If he does, he will see the greatest threat to national unity of this country staring right back at him. This isn't about impressing celebrities or drinking boxed water. This is about doing what is best for Canada.
Honourable Member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take a trip down memory lane of the last 3.5 years in my riding of the Long Range Mountains in Newfoundland and Labrador with our leader. The Veterans Affairs Office in Cornerbrook was the first of many reopened across the country after being closed by the Harper government. The Department of Fisheries Oceans hired 19 new scientists in Newfoundland and Labrador alone after the previous government cut science spending and muzzled scientists. There are numerous communities communities with better drinking water, safer bridges, and a more prosperous economy, with $39 million invested in infrastructure. And those projects were 10 years on the back burner with the previous government. And I have to mention record investments in Parks Canada. Yeah, the Harper government slashed funding to Parks Canada as well. The list goes on, Mr. Speaker. Our child care benefit, increases guaranteed income supplement, I support, and so much more. That, Mr. Speaker, is much better than advertised.
Order.
Questions orales. Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister received a letter from 6 provinces' premiers calling on him to accept amendments to Bill C-69. And what did the Prime Minister say in return? That they're a threat to national unity. I would remind him that Canadian unity is only ever threatened when the Liberals are in power. When will he finally show respect for all the provinces? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would suggest that maybe the Leader of the Opposition read that letter from the Premiers, who themselves talked about a threat to national unity. I agree with him that that's totally irresponsible to hear that from provincial Premiers. We know that the only way forward is to protect the environment, to work in partnership with Indigenous peoples, and to provide clarity for investors. That's exactly what we're doing with Bill C-69.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister dismisses the legitimate concerns of premiers who are standing up for out-of-work men and women in the energy sector as playing political games. In fact, all provinces asked for amendments to Bill C-69. Even a letter from the Liberal Newfoundland and Labrador government stated that C-69 would deter investment in the development of the resource sector without improving environmental protection. So, Mr. Speaker, the only person responsible for endangering national unity is this Prime Minister. When will he do the right thing and kill Bill C-69?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, it is his Conservative Premier friends who brought up the issue of national unity if they didn't get their way. This comes from a fundamental difference of opinion between Conservatives and Liberals on how to move forward on resource projects. We believe, particularly having seen the failure for 10 years of Stephen Harper, we believe that the only way to move forward is to protect the environment, is to create partnerships with Indigenous peoples. They disagree, and they want to double down on Stephen Harper's failed approach. We know that the environment and the economy must go together in the 21st century.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's not just Conservatives that recognize that his policies are killing Canada's energy sector. Right. In fact, the former NDP Alberta Premier Rachel Notley also vehemently opposed this Prime Minister's anti-energy bills. And former Liberal BC Premier Christy Clark said that the Prime Minister walks around thinking he's not first among equals, but the only one who has no equal when it comes to the premiers. We know how the Prime Minister gets when he's in a mood like that, when he publicly stated that if he didn't win the last election, he'd support Quebec separatism. Yeah. So will the Prime Minister agree that the only threat to the national unity is this Prime Minister?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the fundamental responsibility of any Prime Minister, indeed anyone who aspires to be Prime Minister, is to defend national unity and keep the country together. So the Leader of the Opposition should condemn the Conservative premiers who so blithely stated and make claims about threats to national unity if they don't get their way. Yeah. The issue at hand, Mr. Speaker, is Conservatives don't think that in order to move forward with resource projects, you have to be mindful of the environment and you have to partner with Indigenous peoples. We disagree. Indeed, we think it's the only way to move forward.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister is causing the problem. He's the one that is causing divisions between regions and polarizing Canadians. He's acting like someone who sets fire to a house and then lashes out at the people calling in the fire department. It's his policies that have killed the Northern Gateway project, that killed Energy East, and now has had to use taxpayers' dollars to purchase a decades-old pipeline. When will he realize that it's his policies that are hurting the energy sector and leading to men and women being out of work because of his policies?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' obliviousness to the facts is actually mind-boggling. For 10 years, Stephen Harper and the Conservatives couldn't get projects built because they marginalized environmental voices and ignored Indigenous peoples. We knew that the only way to move forward was to improve the system around which we approve and move forward on projects and give clarity to investors. And that's why we're moving forward with C69, because we know we're going to be able to get projects built by working with Indigenous peoples and protecting the environment.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
There he goes again, Mr. Speaker, just saying things that he knows aren't true. The previous Conservative government saw 4 major pipelines completed and built, including one to Tidewater, without taxpayers' dollars. It's his policies that have ignored Indigenous concerns, Indigenous communities who wanted to be partners in Northern Gateway. It's his policies that are condemning Canadians to always be reliant on foreign oil coming into our markets. When will he realize that his policies are phasing out the energy sector and all the jobs that go with it?
I remind the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to be judicious in his choice of words. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives need to be the ones who are being careful with the truth, because the Kinder Morgan Anchor Loop, which is the pipeline they refer to consistently as having been built, goes nowhere near a port, Mr. Speaker. We know that we need, and we've needed for a long time, to get our oil exports to markets other than the United States. For 10 years, the Conservatives failed because they ignored environmental concerns and they didn't work with Indigenous peoples. We are now putting forward a pathway to do exactly that in C69, which is going to get projects built the right way. That's what the industry wants. That's what Canadians want. That's what we need to do to grow the economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, today Dr. Hoskins drew the same conclusions as several commissions. People need a universal public pharmacare program. People are having to make impossible choices between paying their rent and paying for their medication, cutting pills in half to make them last longer, or skipping part of their prescribed dose. For the NDP, it's clear. We will stand with ordinary people and implement a universal pharmacare program by the year 2020. Will the Liberals stand with us?
Le très honorable Premier Ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, no Canadian should have to choose between paying for medication and food. We have accepted Dr. Hoskins' report and that of the Advisory Commission about setting up a pharmacare program. We have been keeping our commitment from 2015 to improve access to necessary medications. The report is an important step towards the potential plan of having a pharmacare plan. For us, pharmacare is important for people, but we know that unfortunately for the Leader of the Opposition, it's always a question of privatization. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
1993, 1997, 2004, 2015, time and time again, Liberals have promised to help deliver and result in lower cost of medication, but they failed to do so. This means 4 more years of people in emergency rooms because they can't afford their prescription. 4 more years of Canadians choosing between food and medicine. 4 more years of Liberals putting pharmaceutical companies ahead of people. Canadians need help now. So why is the Prime Minister failing to commit to making it more affordable to access medication?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
No Canadian should have to choose between medication and food. That's why we accept the report by Dr. Hoskins and the Advisory Council on the implementation of National Pharmacare. We're building on commitments going back to 2015 and made concretely in Budget 2019 to improve access to necessary medications, which has already had an impact on Canadians from coast to coast to coast. This report is an important step to lay the foundation of a national pharmacare program. For us, we're going to continue to make sure that Canadians can afford their medication as we move forward with it.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
To the same conclusion that so many others have already come to. In fact, this recommendation is over 40 years old.
Wow.
Canada needs single-payer pharmacare now. But while Canadians anxiously wait for help, Liberals and Conservatives put pharmaceuticals and insurance companies ahead of people. Just like they let rich companies off the hook when it came to tax avoidance, just like they put big telecom ahead of people being ripped off on their cell phone bills, New Democrats have a plan to save families hundreds of dollars. Why do Liberals only have a plan to delay?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past 4 years, we have acted concretely on a broad range of measures to make lives easier for Canadians, not just the kind of wishful thinking that the NDP specializes in, but serious, tangible measures, like $500 million towards the high cost of drugs for rare diseases. Moving forward on a Canada Drug Agency that's going to be able to lower prices across the country. We're putting more money in the pockets of the middle class with the Canada Child Benefit that has lifted hundreds of thousands of people out of poverty. We're investing.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Over and over, the Prime Minister has made excuses for why he stands with rich companies instead of ordinary folks. Yesterday, they stood with telecommunications companies by refusing to help people reduce their cell phone bills. And today, they're standing with big pharmaceutical companies by refusing to set up a universal public pharmacare plan. When will the Prime Minister stand with Canadians and implement universal pharmacare?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, one of the big differences between the NDP and the Liberal Party of Canada is that we listen to experts and we know how to do things right. The NDP has all kinds of beautiful promises that they'll never be able to implement because they don't have any plan to do so. We listen to experts like Dr. Hoskins and his report to find the best way of moving forward. That's the approach that lifted 825,000 Canadians out of poverty over the last few years, lifted 300,000 children out of poverty, and we know that listening to experts and having a good plan is the right way to help Canadians.
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, here's what this Prime Minister does. If you raise concerns or disagree with him and what he's doing, he dismisses you, tries to discredit you, and calls you names. Just ask the former Attorney General about what happened to her. And now the Prime Minister is insulting and dismissing provinces who disagree with his No More Pipelines Bill C-69. Does the Prime Minister realize that he and no one else is the biggest threat to Canada's unity?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this all stems from a deep misunderstanding between the Conservatives and the Liberals. We think the only way forward in this country on resource projects, on growing the economy, is to fold in the environment, to respect Indigenous peoples in our thinking, in our processes. The Conservatives still want to barrel through ignoring environmental voices, ignoring Indigenous peoples. That didn't work for 10 years of Stephen Harper, but they are doubling down right now. On this side, we're going to get things built.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
By blocking the Manitoba-Minnesota Hydro Project. He's picking a fight with 9 out of 10 provinces who have serious concerns with his No More Pipelines bill, and he's picking a fight with almost 60% of Canadians and provinces who reject his carbon tax. The Prime Minister's dismissal of provincial concerns is provoking a possible constitutional crisis. Does the Prime Minister not see that his divisive and hostile treatment of these premiers is what's causing the real threat to national unity?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I refuse to take lessons from a member of Stephen Harper's government that refused to hold First Ministers' meetings for almost the entire duration of their time in office. I have sat down with the premiers regularly, individually and collectively, to work together, to listen to their concerns, to move forward on important issues like internal trade, to move forward on important issues that matter to all Canadians, like creating jobs and lowering unemployment rates. At the same time, we know that protecting the environment and working with Indigenous peoples is the only way to get projects built the right way.
Order.
If it weren't for that sweater.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, this morning the Prime Minister, the Premier of Quebec, François Legault, said it's unfortunate that the Liberal government had rejected the Senate's amendments. The Quebec Minister of the Environment had expressed concerns about Bill C-69 and proposed an amendment. He said that there had been no dialogue with this Liberal government. My question for the Prime Minister is simple. How can he have a good relationship with the premiers if he doesn't even listen to them? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we were happy to accept nearly 100 of the amendments proposed by the Senate because we are always trying to improve our bills. We were happy to work with the provinces, and we're always happy to work with the premiers. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect us to move forward in the right way, and that means respecting environmental concerns, working with First Nations, and consulting when we develop big energy projects. That's exactly what we're going to continue to do, and that's what the Conservatives don't understand. But we will always work with the provinces. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, we all remember that in this House, the Prime Minister, in relation to the provinces, used the word pandering. Yesterday, the Prime Minister reiterated this by saying that provincial premiers were engaging in blackmail by threatening national unity. That's simply unacceptable. Does the Prime Minister believe that the provinces, the municipalities, First Nations, and Conservative and Independent senators, some of whom he appointed himself, shouldn't be listened to when they propose amendments? Seriously? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I think the member across the way is very mixed up. Indeed, we accepted nearly 100 of the amendments proposed by senators and by various groups who wanted to improve Bill C-69. Because we understand that the only way to move forward and to create good new projects is to ensure that we have a partnership with First Nations and that we protect the environment. That's what the Conservatives have been rejecting for the past decade, and they will continue to do so. We know that to build the economy, we need to protect the environment too.
Mr. Speaker, while the Prime Minister continues to stand in this House and indicate that his path is the way forward in order to get pipelines built, he's being told by 6 premiers in this country representing 59% of the population that that's simply not true. Mr. Speaker, this is a very grave situation. The Premier of New Brunswick actually said yesterday that the Prime Minister is underestimating the urgency of this situation. Will he do the right thing, support Canadian investment, and ensure that every single one of these amendments pass?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, those premiers represent perhaps 59% of the population. My job is to represent 100% of the population. Canadians understand that the only way to move forward is on big projects that are needed for jobs and growth is to be mindful of environmental concerns and to work in partnership with Indigenous peoples. The Conservatives' attempts to gut the bill are just a reflection of the path that they tried and failed under Stephen Harper, that didn't serve Alberta, that didn't serve our industry, that wasn't able to get things built.
Order. The Honourable Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, while the Prime Minister professes that Ottawa knows best, the reality is that the premiers are indicating very clearly that there there is a significant problem with this legislation. There's a problem because it's going to scare away business investment, and there's a greater problem, of which he was warned by former Premier Notley back in February that this is not a way to build a country. Will he do the right thing and make sure that every one of these amendments pass and give certainty to the provinces in this great country?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said, we have accepted close to 100 different amendments that strengthen the bill, that ensure that we are going to be able to get projects built. But the amendments that the Conservatives would have us accept make Indigenous consultations optional, exempt oil sands development and pipeline projects from federal reviews, and indeed even block Canadians from having a say on projects. Well, if those elements sound familiar to Canadians, it's because it was exactly the approach that Stephen Harper tried and failed at when he failed to grow our economy and failed to get projects.
I'm starting to hear language that's unparliamentary. I remind members to restrain themselves and not to speak when someone else has the floor. The honourable member for Edmonton West will come to order. The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, today the Hoskins report on pharmacare was released, and to no one's surprise, it recommends a public, universal, and comprehensive pharmacare system, the same conclusion of every task force, commission, committee, and study over the last 50 years, and he said it's time to implement it. Why? Because we know that we can cover every single Canadian's medicine needs and save billions of dollars every year by doing so. So now, will the Liberals finally commit to universal, comprehensive, and single-payer pharmacare and immediately get to work on implementing this essential health program?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we recognize that no Canadian should ever have to make the impossible choice between paying for their medications or putting food on the table. That is why we have moved forward significantly over the past years on making prescription drugs more affordable, on moving forward on things like a Canada Drug Agency that's going to negotiate better prices, and moving forward on $500 million to reduce the high cost of rare disease drugs. But we know there's more to do. That's why we welcome the report by Dr. Hoskins and look forward to...
Honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
And we thought Mr. Dithers was retired. Mr. Speaker, we know delay is poor fiscal policy because every year we wait costs our country billions of dollars. Worse, delay is bad health policy because thousands of Canadians get sicker and die every year because of lack of access to medicine. Liberals had 13 years of government since they promised Canadians public coverage in 1997 and failed to deliver. Liberals like to campaign on pharmacare. New Democrats like to implement it. Mr. Speaker, and commit to act.
I of course urge all members to avoid language that might be considered insulting. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the beginning of this mandate, we've made historic investments in health transfers, in ensuring that Canadians have better access to more quality health care, and we've also moved forward significantly to lower the cost of prescription drugs throughout our time in office. But we know there is more to do, and that's why we welcome the report by Dr. Eric Hoskins that talks about the next steps that we can move forward on as we ensure that no Canadian ever has to choose between paying for their medications or paying their rent. We know that the NDP is always filled with great ideas, but no idea.
The honourable member for Beauport, Côte de Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Well, we're finally nearing the end of this government's term in office. Unfortunately for taxpayers, that term was very costly. The Prime Minister raised the cost of living for Canadian families and is now just hoping that they'll forget that by October 21st. For example, he axed tax credits for public transit and for children's sports activities, as well as hiking taxes. Why do Canadians always have to pay more when the Liberals are in power. Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, over the last 4 years, we lowered costs for the average family by $2,000 through our middle-class tax cuts, through the fact that we increased taxes on the wealthiest 1%. We introduced the Canada Child Benefit, which gives more money to 9 out of 10 Canadian families and lifted 300,000 children out of poverty. We strengthened investments for seniors, investments in housing, in public transport. These are all things that have helped families and helped create 1 million new jobs.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
When asked what his privileged family was personally doing to help protect the environment, the Prime Minister answered with nonsensical blather that could best be interpreted as, nothing really, but let them eat cake. From a box. Canadians are tired of this ineffectual, carbon-taxing, drink-box water bottle, expensive virtue signaling. When will this out-of-touch Prime Minister stop telling Canadians to do what he says, but not what he does?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to choose to believe that somewhere in there was a question on the environment from the Conservative Party of Canada, which is quite wonderful. Although I will say it's been 409 days that we have been waiting for the Conservative Party to put forward a plan to fight climate change, or even to recognize that climate change is a problem, or even to recognize that climate change contributes to extreme weather events. We know, Mr. Speaker, the time to act is now, because it is not possible to have a plan for the economy without having a plan for climate.
Order. I remind members that the time to speak, including the member for Edmonton Manning, is when they have the floor and not when they don't have the floor. The member for Chilliwack Hope now has the floor.
This privileged Prime Minister is simply out of touch with everyday Canadians, which is why he found it so easy to cut their take-home pay by raising payroll taxes, take away their tax credits for textbooks, transit and kids' arts and sports, and slap a carbon tax on everything, making their gas, groceries and heating bills soar. Canadian families don't have a trust fund to fall back on, and under this government, they're struggling just to make ends meet. So why is this Prime Minister so hell-bent on making their lives more expensive?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
4 years later, Mr. Speaker, and the Conservatives are still reduced to personal attacks and inventing things, Mr. Speaker. The first thing we did was lower taxes on the middle class and raise them on the wealthiest 1%. We then delivered a Canada Child Benefit that helps 9 out of 10 Canadian families with hundreds of dollars tax-free every month, has lifted 300,000 kids out of poverty as part of our plans that have lifted 800,000 Canadians out of poverty. We've continued to grow the economy with over 1 million new jobs, while at the same time having the lowest.
The Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, the facts don't lie. Half of Canadian families are within $200 of not being able to pay their bills each month. A third of Canadian families are unable to cover their payments and are falling further into debt. The Prime Minister's never had to worry about his own money, but Canadian families do. They don't have an extra $60 to pay for a pack of boxed water, and they certainly can't afford $1.60 a litre for gas. And when will this out-of-touch Prime Minister stop making life more expensive for Canadian families who, under this government, are just struggling to get by?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite likes to talk about facts. Let's talk about some facts. Fact, the lowest unemployment rate in Canada in 40 years. Fact, Canadians have created 1 million jobs over the past 4 years. Fact, 300,000 kids lifted out of poverty. Fact, 825,000 Canadians lifted out of poverty. Mr. Speaker, investments in infrastructure, investments in communities, investments that have made lives more affordable and better for Canadians from coast to coast to coast. That's a fact.
please.
Order.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, it is National Public Service Week, but many public servants don't feel like celebrating. Celine, a public servant in my riding, told me that because of the Liberals and Conservatives' Phoenix pay fiasco, she has been owed over $18,000 for more than a year and a half. Once again, the Liberals are pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into a big corporation, even though the issues are just piling up. Why are the Liberals haven't paid back Céline yet and other public services in the same situation? The Honourable Prime Minister, our public service deserve to be paid correctly and on time. Yes, the Conservatives under Stephen Harper messed up the Phoenix pay system and created suffering for thousands of public servants. With the help of public service experts and suppliers, we're working hard to find a modern and reliable solution. We identified 3 suppliers, and there will be a pilot project to launch before the end of the year so that we can offer reliable long-term solutions, and the member should communicate this information and will help this person.
Liberals aren't being honest with Canadians about the new NAFTA. They are rushing through a deal that will make drugs like insulin more expensive. When Canadians already can't afford their medication, why is this Prime Minister caving to Donald Trump and Big Pharma? People with diabetes, Crohn's, and rheumatoid arthritis are depending on their government to stand up for them and not rush through a trade deal that will make their medication more expensive. Why is this Prime Minister choosing to stand up for Big Pharma over vulnerable Canadians?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, by securing a new NAFTA deal with the United States, we've been standing up for workers, including workers in southwestern Ontario, who are very pleased to see us move forward on this new NAFTA deal. We've protected jobs right across the country. Of course, the NDP are a little bit all over the place, as usual. In the House of Commons, they criticized the deal, but in private events, they said that the new NAFTA was the best deal possible. They know that the new NAFTA protects millions of jobs that were threatened, and indeed, the MP for Rosemont Petite Patrie said it's the best deal possible, and it protects workers all around this country. We agree.
The Honourable Member for Bay-Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, veterans' homelessness is absolutely unacceptable in Canada. This is why yesterday I was proud to bring my private member's motion on ending veterans' homelessness to the House for debate. My motion called on the government to prevent and end homelessness by 2025. It had full support of veterans and stakeholders across the country. Unfortunately, members of the opposition failed to allow my motion to go to a vote in the House. Could the Prime Minister update the House on what our government will be doing to end veterans' homelessness in Canada?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I thank the member for the Bay of Quinte for his outstanding work for his constituents, and particularly for veterans, as the chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee. I want to thank him for bringing forward this important motion, which we support, to end veteran homelessness by 2025. Unfortunately, last night, Conservatives put partisanship ahead of helping veterans, which is disappointing but not surprising. The Harper Conservatives ignored veterans and ignored people living in homelessness for far too long. Even if Conservatives won't put partisanship aside, we'll continue to work for people across this country.
Order. Most members in all parties are able to sit through the question period, hear things they don't like, and not blurt things out when it isn't their turn. So I'd invite the small number that don't do that and who repeatedly feel they have to interject to not do so. The
Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After 4 years in power, the Liberals aren't even able to detect any issues with the Paris targets. How could you find solutions when you can't even see the problem? But the Liberals' record on the environment, here it is. They just whipped up an intention to eliminate plastics in 2021. They've talked about an environmental emergency, but they can't even admit that the Paris targets won't be met. They bought a pipeline for more than $4 billion. When will the Prime Minister, who maintains he's a big defender of the environment, admit that Canada won't meet its Paris targets? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It's sad to hear what they're saying, but I can reassure Canadians we are going to meet our Paris targets. We know that protecting the environment is the only way to protect and create economic growth at the same time. We established a plan to put a price on pollution. We also put forward a plan to protect the oceans, and we have a concrete plan to create growth and protect environment at the same time. And the Conservatives, well, we've been waiting for a plan for 409 days. They said they would deliver this plan, but they haven't done so. Order.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, a sitting Liberal MP's law firm has been seized by the Law Society of British Columbia. This sitting Liberal member has been removed from the BC Bar. This sitting Liberal MP's law firm was used by a notorious Chinese drug boss to launder money in a multi-million-dollar real estate deal. Mr. Speaker, when did the Prime Minister become aware of this latest Liberal scandal, and what's he going to do about it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The member in question has addressed these allegations. We continue to move forward concretely on countering money laundering in BC and right across the country with investments through the CRA and Budget 2019 that puts forward task forces on real estate audits that make sure we're working in partnership with BC to crack down on money laundering to ensure that this illegal activity ceases once and for all.
Honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Yesterday, the Public Accounts Committee sent a letter to the Finance Minister. The letter, signed by members of all parties, asked the Liberals to fund the Auditor General so that he can do his important work. And it's not lost on anyone that the Prime Minister is muzzling the Auditor General as an election approaches. Right. So much for accountability and transparency. What's the Prime Minister trying to hide? Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister can't blame Stephen Harper on this one. So will he accept the demands of the committee, including Liberal members, and fund the Auditor General so that he can do his job?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to support the important ongoing work of the Auditor General. The member opposite mentioned Stephen Harper and how appropriate that he did, because the Harper Conservatives cut nearly $6.5 million and 60 employees from the Auditor General's budget. But we took action to restore that funding. Right. But it's interesting to see the Conservatives suddenly taking an interest in the officers of Parliament, especially when the MP for Carleton continues to accuse Elections Canada of partisanship and political interference, when we know it's the Conservatives who know how to break election laws.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about the facts. The facts are that never in the history of the AGO has the Auditor General never been able to complete audits because of a lack of funds. We are asking them to correctly finance the AGO, but the Auditor General ensures that the government doesn't spend too much money, and they weren't able to conduct audits because of this government. Will the Liberals ensure that the Auditor General can do his work properly for what he's being paid by taxpayers? On this side of the House, we have always supported the important work of the Auditor General. The Conservatives, in fact, under Stephen Harper, cut $6.5 million from the AGO's budget, and that led to the cut of 60 employees. And what we did was restore this financing because we know that the work done by the Auditor General is very important, and we will always support it.
Member for Churchill, Kiewit-Nokaski.
Mr. Speaker, this past week, Manitoba decided to privatize Lifelight, our air ambulance service. This goes against the wishes of First Nations, Métis, and Northern communities and countless doctors and nurses. This move could force crews to take risks for profit rather than be solely concerned with the health of patients. First Nations have asked for the federal government to step in, given that they are very concerned. Let's be clear, lives are at stake. So will the federal government step in to ensure the health and safety of Northern Canadians?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member opposite for bringing up this important issue. Indeed, we see it time and time again. Conservative premiers, conservative politicians see health care as a business. That indeed was the name of one of the fundraisers that the Conservative Party of Canada recently held, the business of health care. Right. We know that access to health care is a fundamental right for all Canadians, and we're going to continue to work with provinces, with partners to ensure that access to health care is protected as a Canadian right for everyone.
That's right. The honourable member for Hamilton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the 2015 Liberal platform promised, we will ensure that all the officers of Parliament are properly funded and accountable only to Parliament. And now the Public Accounts Committee has unanimously called for the Auditor General's $10.8 million underfunding be reversed. Mr. Speaker, this government promised to respect Parliament, respect its officers, and respect its standing committees. So I ask the Prime Minister, where is this respect? And more importantly, where's the money?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, after the Conservative government cut $6.5 million from the Auditor General's budget, cutting 60 staff, we knew we had to restore that funding, and that's exactly what we did, because we support the work of the Auditor General. We indeed support our officers of Parliament. We will continue to stand and support the important work they do. We defend our institutions in this country every single day, despite the attacks by the opposition on the integrity of our officers of Parliament, whether it be the Parliamentary Budget Officer or the Elections Canada officials. We know we're going to...
Order. The honourable member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the community of 100 Mile received very difficult news with the closure of Norbord and the 160 jobs that will go with it. This is 10 days following Canfor and Vavenby with 180 jobs, and this government is partly to blame. The Liberals had 4 years to resolve the softwood lumber industry. They've had no progress. They could have attached it to the NAFTA negotiations. They didn't seem to care. Instead, we have an industry that's moving en masse to the United States. Can the Prime Minister tell us his plan to support these communities?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we have consistently and will continue to stand up for our forestry sector, including in working to ensure that the United States ends this softwood lumber conflict. We will continue to do this important work. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is it's humorous to see the Conservatives suggesting that we have done more on NAFTA when their approach, as evidenced by Stephen Harper, who the Leader of the Opposition regularly listens to, said we needed to capitulate right away on NAFTA to accept any deal, not necessarily a good deal. We disagree.
The Honourable Order. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. After being completely indifferent towards canola and pork producers for 5 months, and after denying this crisis was primarily political for 5 months, and after waiting for the crisis to solve itself for 5 months, the Prime Minister has finally said he may consider speaking with the Chinese President at the G20 for the sake of Canadians detained in China, for the sake of Canadian canola, pork and soya producers. Can the Prime Minister commit today to standing up and solving this issue once and for all with the Chinese President? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Since the beginning, we are taking this issue very seriously. We've asked for the immediate release of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovor, and we have clearly asked for clemency in other cases. We believe in the respect of our legal system, and we are going to do things properly. And Australia, EU, and Netherlands and many other countries support us in this issue with China, and we're going to continue to work for Canadians.
Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
But, Mr. Speaker, if he's serious, then the Prime Minister needs to do something. And with less than a week until the G20 summit, this Prime Minister continues to abandon Canadians by failing to ask for a meeting with the Chinese president. Canadians suffer in Chinese prisons. The farmers are facing high financial harm, while tens of thousands protest in the streets of Hong Kong and in the cities across Canada over dystopian Chinese extradition law. Will the Prime Minister finally decide to meet with the Chinese president? Why is he showing such weakness in the face of China?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the very beginning of this government, we've remained focused on standing up for and supporting Canadians in trouble overseas. This was a change from the Conservative approach, which wasn't particularly enthusiastic of sticking up for Canadians around the world. We've done exactly that. That's why we've had positive results throughout this mandate on very difficult situations, and we've done that by moving forward in ways designed not to draw positive headlines, but to advance the issues at case. Sometimes it's done privately, sometimes it's done publicly, but it's all...
The Honourable Member for Buena Vista, Buren Trinity.
Mr. Speaker, my constituents understand the important duty of the Canadian Coast Guard to keep our oceans and waterways healthy and safe. This year's winter has been particularly harsh in Newfoundland and Labrador. We know the Canadian Coast Guard plays a crucial role in keeping our goods moving with their icebreakers. After a decade of cuts by the Harper Conservatives, our government is taking action. How come you never say anything? Can the Prime Minister update this House on what our government has done to ensure the Canadian Coast Guard has all the tools it needs to carry out their important work?
Well, Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Buena Vista, Buren Trinity. He understands well the importance of keeping the Coast Guard well equipped, and we agree. Recently, we welcomed Coast Guard ship Captain Molly Cool. It marks the first of 3 interim icebreakers to join the fleet. After a decade of Conservative cuts, last month we announced the single largest investment in Canadian history to renew our Coast Guard fleet. Canadians can be proud of the women and men of the Coast Guard who work every day to save lives and protect our coasts.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, Engage Canada has made a $4 million ad buy to attack the Conservative Party, and the Liberal Party hasn't had to spend a cent. Unifor's bragged about donating hundreds of thousands of dollars to Engage Canada, and even publicly asked their membership to donate to the group. This is the same Unifor that's on the panel that will decide which media outlets get $600 million in bailouts from this Liberal government. When will the Prime Minister stop stacking the deck in their favour and hold a fair election?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will take no lessons from a party that made it harder for Canadians to vote with their Unfair Elections Act. Indeed, they, as we all know, were found guilty of breaking election laws in multiple elections. Conservatives even made it illegal for Elections Canada to encourage voting. We reversed that ban. On top of that, we all remember that the MP for Carleton signed a compliance agreement with Elections Canada in 2017 because he had broken election law in the last election. We ended the Conservative practice of party.
The Honourable Member for Belay-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, for years we've been asking the federal government to respect the city of Otterburn Park and its citizens. The Prime Minister showed up to walk around and talk about the environment in Mont-Saint-Hilaire, yet TELUS wants to build a tower in the same green area, namely the Mont-Saint-Hilaire biosphere. He visited Monday. Will the PM respect the environment in my riding, listen to citizens, and refuse the TELUS tower in Otterburn Park? Or will he simply use our green heritage as a pretty decorative backdrop? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Our government always believes that to create economic growth, we have to protect the environment at the same time and listen to the concerns of citizens. And that is why we commit to a consultation process with the citizens before we move forward with the project. And that's what we'll always do. We respect the concerns of citizens. We listen to what they have to say, and we take action to make sure we're moving forward correctly. And that is what Canadians expect of any government. The member for Saint-Jean. The citizens of Saint-Jean know how much trade is crucial for economic development and for stability for small and medium companies. The government knows the importance of reducing the distance in the highway and encouraging lasting economic development. Can the Prime Minister tell the House about our latest investment to extend Highway 35 to directly link Montreal to Boston? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to thank the member for his work, for his constituents. Every day, tons of merchandise are on the roads, and we're investing $82 million to extend Highway 35, and we're continuing to build competitive and strong communities. This is also in addition to $500 million for the tunnel, and we're working hard for all Canadians to ensure access to our markets and safe transport.
Mr. Speaker, it's been 73 days since the Prime Minister sent me a letter threatening to sue me for my statements about his corruption and attempted interference in a criminal court case. Now, he's going to get up in a moment and say that he sent the notice to warn me about saying things that he thought weren't true. But here's the thing, Mr. Speaker, I haven't backed down. I haven't apologized for them. In fact, I've repeated those statements word for word outside of this chamber. Now, the Prime Minister knows that if he has to testify under oath, he will be charged with perjury for saying things that aren't true. When will he see me in court?
Right. Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the opposition leader is doubling down on misleading Canadians. It shows they're still following the Harper playbook. We put him on notice because he and his party have a history of making false and defamatory statements. That's what he did in December against the Minister of Innovation, where he was forced to swallow his false words and retract his statements. We won't stand by while he misleads Canadians again, and while the members of the opposition are focused on me, we're going to stay focused on Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, a headline in the Journal de Montréal this morning said, sickening odor of cash in Ottawa. The sickening odor they're talking about is the smell of the Liberal Party. The party is shoveling in hundreds of thousands from high finance, lobbyists, oil companies, banks, religious groups, and law firms. When will the Prime Minister stop working for interest groups that pay him richly and speak in and keep his promise of returning to public financing based on the popular vote? Right Honourable Prime Minister, we improved and transformed political financing in this country by requiring greater transparency and accountability so that all Canadians can see who and how people are making donations to various parties. We encourage all parties to respect the law we established, namely to publish and to make public financing, and that is exactly what Canadians expect. We can be proud of our robust and solid federal system, and I know it'll be important for all parties to follow the example of the Liberal Party of Canada.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of Her Excellency Louise Mushibago, Secretary General of the Francophonie.
I would also like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Suhail Mohammed Farja Al Mazroua, Minister of Energy and Industry of the United Arab Emirates. The Honourable Government House Leader is rising on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, there have been discussions amongst the parties, and if you seek it, I think you'll find unanimous consent for the following motion, that the 97th report of the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs presented on June 10th, 2019 be concurred in. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Government House Leader have the unanimous consent of the House to move the motion. Yes. Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Carried. The
Honourable Member for Manicouagan on a point of order. Mr. Speaker, if you seek it, I believe you will find unanimous consent of the House for the following motion: that this House put an end to the daily prayer at the start of sittings once this Parliament ends. Order. Order. The member should sit. Thank you. We know, I hope,